I am very pleased to extend a warm welcome to UWI TV, our university's new multimedia public information and education service. In partnership with CariVision, the regional cable service of the Caribbean Media Corporation, and with the RJR Group in Jamaica, we will be offering a variety of television programs each day that reflect not just the scholarship that occurs on the university's 4 campuses, but also the many public events and activities that take place daily at UWI. Our partnership with CariVision will deliver UWI's TV's content to millions of viewers in 22 Caribbean country markets, as well as into the large Caribbean diaspora communities in New York, Toronto, Montreal, London, and Europe. UWI TV's cable service will be complemented by a robust digital presence on the internet and on social media. Visitors to UWI TV website can view all our television programs streaming in real time and available for access on demand to anyone with an internet connection anywhere in the world. In addition, you will find UWI TV on several social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. In short, you will see UWI TV's content anytime, anywhere, and on any device, on your TV set, your computer, tablet, and your smartphone. I encourage you to spend time on the state-of-the-art UWI TV website, which offers a vast searchable archive of UWI-related videos going back several years. This online video database will be an invaluable resource for students, scholars, librarians, researchers, documentarians, and journalists throughout the region and across the world. We hope that you will enjoy our programs, and we invite you to engage with us on the web and on social media. We welcome your feedback, your suggestions, and recommendations as we seek to improve this service in the future. Thank you.
Up next on UWI TV,
Hello, I'm Don Rohan. Today it is my honor and pleasure to welcome to the first of our Region Talk programs on UWI TV, the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles. Vice Chancellor, welcome.
Thank you, Don. It's a pleasure to be here on UWI TV.
But I'd like to start off with your emphasis on the university as a regional university with 4 campuses, with 1 university. And why the emphasis on the 1 university?
Well, Don, you know, we started 68 years ago here in Jamaica with 1 building, 1 discipline, medicine, on 1 island. Now we are in 17 islands, all the disciplines, all the faculties, and 4 campuses. And we have evolved through that process of responding to the needs of the region in different ways. So now we are truly a regional university, an interdisciplinary university, and a very large university. But there have always been a tendency to restructure the governance model to make sure that we are proactive, that we are effective and efficient in each of the jurisdictions where we function. So our remit is to focus on the specific issues in front of us in the national communities we serve, but at the same time to do so with full recognition that we are a tendency to restructure the governance model to make sure, and therefore we must not lose sight of the fact that we are effective and efficient in each of our jurisdictions where we function. It is so. Our remit is to, in every part of the region, focus on the specific issue with a singular purpose, which is to serve simultaneously all of the people of the Caribbean.
In your vision for the University of the West Indies moving forward, you have in the past talked about building an activist university, about the University of the West Indies becoming more of an ethical university, a university that's more accountable to the people of the region. Let's start with the first concept. What do you mean by an activist university for the UWI?
Well, yes, activist and ethical simultaneously. Well, UWI started, as I said, as a medical program here at Mona. And that in itself was an activist concept because the public health of Caribbean people had been deteriorating over time. And by the 1930s, it was quite clear that the health of Caribbean peoples was in a state of crisis. So it was not a coincidence to begin the University of the West Indies with the medical discipline, because the top priority in 1948 was to improve the health of the Caribbean nation, to improve the public health, and to build a medical faculty whose program and pedagogy was community health care. And that requires a sense of activism, to be in the community, participating in the upliftment process. So imagine then 50 years forward, an activist university is a university such as ours that says we need to identify all of the major challenges facing our people, whether those challenges are in respect of economic growth, social security, public health, community empowerment. Whatever those issues are, if you take the 10 major challenges facing Caribbean peoples, then the expectation is that the university is active in the context of each one. And not just active in terms of research, but teaching, research, community engagement, active on every aspect of the challenge with a view to resolving the issues and creating a better context. So yes, a UWI as an activist university, publicly engage on all the fronts of national and regional concerns. The ethical university simultaneously is very similar. It says the university is here to serve all of the people, not just the fortunate and the privileged, but especially those people who have been historically disenfranchised and who, through no fault of their own, have found themselves in a marginal situation in relation to the wealth, in relation to the social structure. We have to say this is a university that is here for every citizen, for every community, no matter how marginal, no matter how impoverished. We are here for every family, every individual, and that is an ethical university.
Concurrent with that is your vision of creating a global footprint for the University of the West Indies in this age of globalization. You have spoken about establishing partnerships around the world, in China, in the United States, in Latin America. Talk to us a little bit about your vision for a globalized University of the West Indies.
Well, what we do is to build upon the concept in terms of who we are. The Caribbean people are arguably among the most globalized people in the world. The Caribbean community is one of the first global communities of the modern era. All the cultures, all of the races, all of the civilizations exist within the Caribbean. And what we have built is a Caribbean civilization that is made up of all of these international groups who have made the Caribbean what it is. And by extension, the Caribbean has connections, cultural and intellectual, cosmological, and also now political, with all of those communities that have historically made up who we are. The university, therefore, has to have an outlook that says our strategic vision enforces and is parallel with the vision of the community. And wherever our people have come from, we need to be. Have an interest, we need to be there to facilitate that interest. And so there is a sense of diasporas, and there's a sense of mother nations. UWI is looking at that global context, and we are saying that in the next 5 years or so, we must be functional on every continent of this planet, and that's what we've set out to do. We have just established our institute in New York, working in partnership with SUNY, the State University of New York. There's a large Caribbean community in New York. In fact, many of the major policy issues that are shaping the Caribbean world from the outside, those decisions are made to a larger extent in New York. And therefore, we need to be there to participate in the interest of our people, as well as to shape the conversations in that place that will affect the Caribbean space. And so we have established the SUNY UWI Institute for Leadership and Sustainable Development. Likewise, we are about to do so in China in the early part of 2017. We are going to set up the UWI Institute for Software Engineering, working in partnership with one of our Chinese university partners in order to ensure that the next generation of emerging youth will have access to the digital age through programming out of the technology parks of China. We have a large Chinese community in the Caribbean. China is a part of the Caribbean, and so we are going to go there. Simultaneously, we are having conversations with colleagues in West Africa and South Africa to build centers of UWI on the African continent. So we intend by next year not only to be in this hemisphere, Latin America, North America, but also Europe and Asia. And I have said to my colleagues in a humorous way that we are going to be on all continents, probably except Antarctica. But if my colleagues wish to go to Antarctica, I will fully support and embrace that strategy. So yes, UWI was always meant to be a global university. Our task in this moment is to give effect to that, to deliver upon that vision.
Hi, I'm Camille Hamilton. I'm 23 years old. I'm a graduate of the University of the West Indies, and you're watching UWI TV.
Aziz Salam representing, and you're watching UWI TV.
Hey, my name is Paulette Stewart, and I'm the head of the Department of Library and Information Studies. And we are watching UWI TV.
Hi, my name is Shanna. And I'm Triselle. And you're watching UWI TV.
Hi, my name is Malik Martini. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm studying applied chemistry here at UWI, and you're watching UWI TV.
My name is Vanessa Blackstock, and I study physiology.
My name is Vanessa Cooks, and I study political science and a minor in gender studies. And you're watching UWI TV.
I'm Matthew Duval. I'm a third-year medical student. Thanks for watching UWI TV.
You are on the verge, you and your colleagues at the University of the West Indies are on the verge of your next 5-year strategic plan, which you roll out next year, 2017 to 2021. tell us about some of the fundamental pillars of this new strategic plan.
Well, as you know, the process of strategic planning is a science as well as an art. But what it requires is a very careful and scientific reading of your internal environment. And when I say internal, I'm not just referring to the institution itself, but to the Caribbean space, to read the Caribbean space as accurately as possible, and then to situate that reading within the context of understanding the global world. So you build your perception around a domestic environment and the global ecology, and then you say, what is the purpose of a university? And the fundamental purpose of UWI is to serve the region. Universities are not built to serve themselves, they are built to serve their communities. And in our context, our community is a Caribbean community. And to serve requires to understand. You need to understand the needs and the requirements. So the strategic planning process begins with a detailed scientific and empirical grasp of all of these levels of ecologies, and then to roll out an activist process of delivering upon objectives. So this plan we are in the process of finalizing 2017-2022 is built around what we are calling the AAA concept. The first A is access to higher education. We recognize that in this Caribbean, access to university education is still very much a minority experience. We are running in our region what is really a minority and an elitist operation. A very small percentage of our people have access to higher education or professional training. UWI has to participate in a strategy to considerably expand the tertiary sector, allow more people to participate, and at a lower cost. Because we know there's a tendency for the cost of higher education to increase at a faster rate than the cost in other sectors of the economy. And this is a global phenomenon. So we have to expand access, reduce costs, to bring more people into the process of higher learning, professional training to drive development. And we have to use all of the techniques and methods to achieve access expansion. The second A is alignment of the university with industry. The top priority for this university is to demonstrate a commitment to improving and enhancing the process of wealth creation. This economic recession is threatening all of our historical gains and achievements, and the projections for the immediate future are not as impressive as we would like or wish. And therefore, the university has to throw itself into the center of the conversation about wealth creation, about economic growth. And this is top priority for us. And we believe that we have a critical role to play in helping the private sector to diversify economies, to make the industries much more competitive, to drive the export agenda. So we have a plan to work with the private sector across the region to create greater harmony. There are many areas, for example, where we have the science, we have the know-how, but we don't have the capital. And to bring the research, the knowledge, in alliance with the innovation and industry is precisely what we have to do, because all of those countries that have achieved substantial growth in the last 30 years have built that growth upon industry-academic relationships. The third A, we call it agility. We have to be agile. This university has to be agile, not only domestically, regionally, but internationally. Wherever there are opportunities, we need to be there taking advantage of those opportunities, bringing the value back to the Caribbean. So the entire structure of the university, the resources, will be a line around what we call the AAA to expand access. Access is top priority. Alignment with the industry, top priority. And agility as our modus operandi. That's how we have to be. Agile in pursuit of opportunities to bring value back to Caribbean people. This is what we're going to do. So, yes, it's an exciting moment. It will mean not only the re-engineering of the university itself, but the realignment of the university around the pressing and urgent needs of Caribbean people.
And you're confident that this alignment, this partnership between the university and Caribbean business and Caribbean industry, that the private sectors in the region will be receptive to this initiative?
Well, you know, just this morning, I was able to address the private sector organization of Jamaica, the President's Forum, and we had a very fruitful and exciting conversation around this theme. It is quite clear to the investors of this region in Jamaica and across the Caribbean that the university has a critical role to play. Someone made reference to the link that higher education, research and innovation, that this is the weak link in the chain. And once we strengthen this link, then of course the link will be strengthened. Across the Caribbean, in the larger islands, Trinidad, Barbados, the smaller islands, St. Kitts, Nevis, Tortola, right across the region, there is a perception that this is the age of the university sector, because in the search for economic diversification, in the search for competitiveness, in the attempt to attract more foreign direct investment, all of these issues are actually requiring that the university generates more research, applied research, more professional training, and critically, that we create the skills that are required to attract capital in order to drive production. So this is a moment really for the university to step up, step in, step up, and participate much more aggressively with the wealth creators of this region.
Vice Chancellor, what do you see as the biggest challenges that you face as the chief administrator of this institution of higher education in the Caribbean region? What are the most troubling or vexing challenges that you can identify?
And challenges there are, undoubtedly. How do you maintain a first-class, internationally respected university with a strong legacy, and this is really what UWI is, in a region that has not had sustained economic growth in 20-30 years? Now, universities are institutions that do require capital, undoubtedly. Most of the governments that have funded UWI over the decades are having their own fiscal challenges, and they have cash flow challenges and strapped for cash, and the resources from the public sector are not as available to us as we would wish to expand, modernize, and constantly be reinventing the institution. The private sector that has supported us over the decades, they too are having their challenges, even though the finest entrepreneurs in the region have come to the support of the university and have made significant investments in our infrastructure, our research. So the biggest challenge for us then is how to maintain the quality of this respected university with diminishing public resources from both the public and private sector, and at the same time not passing on too great a cost to our students, and to balance this, because while we want to be activists, as I have said, we also want to be ethical, and we do not wish to have a university that is going to marginalize the poor part of our community, because the fact is that the majority of our citizens in the Caribbean are living in what we might call a materially challenged environment. You might call it poverty, but the majority of our citizens across this region are still living in poverty, and they're the ones who must have access to this university. And they're the ones who are entitled to a quality institution. So the challenge is how to balance all of these very difficult circumstances, and at the same time to recognize that failure is not an option, that you do not lose quality when you have achieved it. And the leaders of this university over the past 68 years have worked very intimately with all of our governments, the international community, with the private sectors of the region, the NGO communities. And we have been able to stitch together a funding model that allows this institution to grow. And this is what we have achieved. So, what we have created, many people have said it's a miracle, but we have achieved it, we have created it, and we must never, ever lose it. So, yes, there's a tremendous amount of psychological stress involved in creatively imagining a better future in a diminishing fiscal environment, but knowing that we have to use our collective imagination and our intellect in order to make sure that the project of the role of UWI as an institution for good is maintained and is respected.
What do you consider among those challenges, the observations that many people in the region have made about the composition of the student body at the university, that there is not enough gender balance, that they are, which is a good thing, there are more young women studying on the various campuses than young men. Is there a need for special outreach to our young males to encourage them to undertake a university education?
Undoubtedly, but I think what is required is a scientific assessment of what is taking place. Historically, gender roles have changed, not only in education, but in industry, in public life on the whole. Gender balances are constantly evolving. Yes, for the first 50 years of UWI's journey, the majority of our students were males. In these last 15 to 18 years, we have seen a reversal of that process. And it is possible that it will change again in the future. Communities are always reading how best to access information. Many years ago, for example, I did a study of young men and how they perceive knowledge and education. And I did not sense in any way that young men were rejecting higher education. They were changing their approach to higher education. Many of them preferred, when they left school, to work and to access information on a part-time basis. Let us say, for example, a young man who finishes school at 16, 17, he goes to work in a bank. He might begin at the lowest level in the banking environment. But what we found is that he would attend weekend programs. He would have seminars, and over the years would accumulate knowledge through short-term programs, through training sessions, acquire skills on the way to becoming a professional banker without taking 3 years to go off to university. Now, what that young man is doing is pursuing information and knowledge on a needs basis at a pace that is consistent with his own social values and maybe his domestic constraints. Now, that young man who approaches the acquisition of knowledge in that way while working is not to be seen as lesser than the young man who goes off to university for 3 years. Because really, they're both pursuing the same kind of objectives through different modalities. So, if there are multiple ways to pursue knowledge and professional enhancement, then the university environment has to be sufficiently flexible to accommodate all possibilities. Then, when you analyze UWI's enrollment, what is interesting also is that while the young men are a minority, 20%, 25%, on most of our campuses, there is a heavy male concentration in certain disciplines. There is a very heavy male concentration in medicine, engineering, finance, accounting, law. So clearly what you're seeing there is that young men are concentrating their enrollment agenda around disciplines that will give them strong professional status, high income, and high public profiles. So that is something which has to be looked at. Now, simultaneously, if our young women who have not participated in the university in the first phases of the university have now come aggressively on stream, then that has to be celebrated as well. So there are things nonetheless that the campuses are all doing. The Cave campus has a program called MATCH, the MATCH program. MATCH is an acronym. It means Males at Cave Hill. And this is a program driven by the students themselves, where they go into the high schools and they say to teenage boys, it is cool to go to school. It is cool to go to school. Leaving school and going to UWI or going to any other college or university and to be scholastic for a few years is cool, it's okay. It's masculine. Mm-hmm. It is masculine to take responsibility for your education. Right. It is masculine to say, I want to develop my intellect and I want to be professionally agile, and to get those kinds of debates in the schools. And I can tell you that it has been very effective, because within 2 years of the MATCH program, I saw the male enrollment move from 25% to 32%. So yes, but these are conversations that we must have. But again, we must focus on a clear understanding as to what is really taking place. And I would reject the notion that is not based on scientific rigor, that young men are rejecting professional training in higher education.
Every day I tell myself I can, I must, I will. The generation of the present is in my hands. I pave the way for the next to come. Each day we say I can, I must, I will. And every day we do. You, we, me.
UWI TV, Caribbean Matters. Up next on UWI TV.
The Caribbean has been a long-serving affiliate of the United Nations, benefiting from policies and programs organized by the United Nations to aid in the development and growth of the region. Part of that development and growth is to secure the region's and the world's future, making them a better place for us to live. To that end, in 2015, the University of the West Indies hosted the UN's Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. His Excellency Ban Ki-moon addressed youths from around the region, stating the importance of having visions and taking actions today that will make the world better tomorrow. His Excellency Ban Ki-moon was introduced to the audience by law student Janelle Odell, a student who's shining brightly despite being visually impaired.
At a time in our history when youth globally are surrounded and buried in face with severe challenges such as youth unemployment, gender-based violence, climate change, political involvement, communicable and non-communicable diseases, crime and violence, the youth in the Caribbean have the fantastic opportunity to engage here on these issues and to share our dreams and aspirations with the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon. Life can be compared to a competitive relay race. In a relay, each individual's participation is vital in achieving a successful outcome. Unity is of utmost importance, and we must never forget the role of the youth in this race. Ladies and gentlemen, this world cannot progress without our youth. It is important that you lend us your ear and offer us your guidance so that when we take the baton, we can run into a positive future. Benjamin Disraeli, former Prime Minister of England, once said, and I quote, "The youth of the nation are the trustees of posterity," end of quote. And with this, it is my honor to welcome the United Nations Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, to Barbados and to the University of the West Indies, Cayfield campus to address us today.
Thank you. By Janice Odell, who has her vision challenge. I hope you will not lose your courage and hope. United Nations is working for and with the people of disabilities. A few years ago, United Nations has adopted an international convention, United Nations Convention for the rights of people with disabilities. And you have brighter hope, and you will never despair. This is a matter of vision, weakness. You have good visions, good ideas, and courage. I wish you all the best. Let's give a big... I'm very honored to be at the University of the West Indies. This is my first time to visit your universities, but I have heard so much about the prestige and history of your university. The topic of today is the world we want post-2015. What kind of future do you want? What kind of world do you want to make? And we have received a lot of good ideas, suggestions, and solutions. That's why I am now telling you that world leaders are actively engaging and negotiating to adopt your views. And what kind of a future you really want to live in, and what kind of a world, the world you want, the post-2015. Every year, every month, every minute must be very important to all of us, to all of you. You may have all different reasons to make your life, your month, your day, your year important. Our future is at stake, depending upon how we take action today, this year. In the past decade and a half, we have achieved a lot within the framework of Millennium Development Goals. Global poverty has been cut in half. More girls are in school. Most of the countries have realized primary educations, but still 57 million school-aged children are out of school. We have made progress in the fight against HIV/AIDS. I think largely Caribbean countries, since 2000 and up to now, you have been able to reduce at least the 60%, the 60 or 65% of mortality from HIV/AIDS. And you have been able to reduce significantly maternal mortality and the child mortality. But much more needs to be done, globally speaking. And even in this region, you have to work more. That's why we are now talking about SDG. Cutting poverty in half was never our ambition. Even though we were satisfied and encouraged. For example, Usain Bolt will never stop at 50 meters. he has to finish 100 meters, and all of us should have gold medal by dashing until the end of 100 meters. Now we have left 50 meters, and that is what we are now aiming. Another 15 years, 2030. By that time, we will have to have eliminated the poverty in this world. We will have to realize gender equality 50% to 50% by that time. Remember, you are not just citizens of Barbados, of the Caribbean. Look beyond this area. There are many, many things which you will see different from where you are living. As you are living in a middle-income country, Barbados, you should have big dreams. It's easy if you want to cross over. If you put your bar at 50 centimeters, I think you can cross over easily. If you put it a little bit higher, 1 meter, you will have to train and exercise. There is no guarantee that your big dreams, high ideals will be met. But another metaphor, if you don't run for congressman or presidency, you will never be elected president or congressman. If you never try your dream, you'll never be able to achieve. Therefore, put your head above the cloud. That means you have a high dream, but be practical and realistic. And move step by step. That's what I'm telling you to young students. And have a big vision. At the same time, big vision means you have a passion. You have a passion. I think passion is a prerogative for young people. Everybody can have a passion. I want to become president, prime minister. That's fine. But at the same time, you should have compassion. Just think about your neighbors. Think about what other people, not in this region or in this country, but in other developing poorer countries, make yourself fit for purpose to make this world better for. I thank you very much, and I will be happy to engage in dialogue from the student. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What two critical interventions do you believe that nations, especially small island developing states such as ours, should take to redress the unacceptably high rates of unemployment among youth?
Unfortunately, these days, there are 73 million youth unemployment. It's not only your country's concern. The most European and developed OECD countries, they have youth unemployment, which affects some political instability too. You have seen what is happening in Greece. Greece has become the first Western countries to have been declared a default. Now, United Nations is now working very closely with the member states how we can provide more job opportunities and livelihoods.
How can our girls effectively address gender-based violence if there is no more available data for it?
This is a very serious issue, and I established UN Women. The UN Women has initiated last year, he for she. Then why he for she? We believe that without the men change their mindset, their mentality, that women are their equal partners to work for this world, better world. Unless they change, it's not possible. So I'm asking the men and gentlemen to really change their mindset I was the first man to sign up for this He For She campaign. We have, I think, about more than 1 million people joined. But there are at least 3.5 billion men, so we have to have more men joining.
Just to wrap up, and to thank you very much, young people from across the Caribbean, for being patient with us and joining us for this wonderful opportunity to meet with and engage with the Secretary General of the United Nations. One of the takeaways I leave that's left with me from this meeting with the Secretary General is the fact that you are not just tomorrow's leaders, you are tomorrow's leaders today. There's an urgency attached to you making decisions before you're 40 and 50, before you get gray hair like mine. You have the opportunity now to make decisions on issues that affect you today, not tomorrow, but today. So I want to thank the Secretary General for bringing that message home to you. And I want to thank you from around the Caribbean for joining us for this wonderful occasion. Thank you very much.
President Obama.
President Barack Obama's visit to Jamaica in April 2015, welcomed by millions and appreciated by many at the University of the West Indies. President Barack Obama's visit came 33 years after Ronald Reagan's, the first US president to visit Jamaica back in 1982. The first black man in the White House acclimatized quickly.
Greetings, Massive. Hey. Wagwan, Jamaica.
But his message was meant to be much more than a laugh. He touched on the hot topics ranging from trade with the US.
Now, we are not just nations, we're also neighbors. Tens of millions of Americans are bound to the Caribbean and the Americas through ties of commerce, but also ties of kin. More than 1 million Americans trace their ancestry to Jamaica. More than 1 million Americans visit Jamaica each year. So we're committed to you and this region. So today I'm announcing nearly $70 million in U.S. investments in education, training, and employment programs for our young people throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. And these investments will help young people in unemployed and impoverished and marginalized communities, give them a chance to gain the skills they need to compete and succeed in the 21st century economy.
President Obama offered a message that aimed at growing the region and more so its relationship with the United States.
4 years ago, I launched an initiative called 100,000 Strong in the Americas, and the goal was to have 100,000 U.S. students studying in this region and 100,000 of this region's students studying in the United States by the end of this decade, and we are on track to meet that goal. So today, to build on that progress, I'm proud to launch the Young Leaders of the Americas Initiative right here in Kingston. And let me say this. This is not your traditional exchange. We're going to seek out the most innovative young entrepreneurs and civil society leaders in the Caribbean, Latin America, and we're going to give them a chance to earn a substantial continuum of the training and the resources and the connections, the networks, and the capital that you need to make a difference.
Of the many youths from around the region who were present for this historic visit, all will have a story to tell. Some much more than others.
I'm sorry, I love you too, though.
But each has stated a claim in history. They got their chances to pose questions to the US President
If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice before the start of your 2008 term, what would it be? And the second part is, could you sign this book when you're finished? Thank you very much.
I'll sign the book. I suppose I could have started dyeing my hair earlier, so then people wouldn't say, man, he's getting old. Mind that when I came into office, we were going through the worst global financial crisis since the 1930s. And so we had to make a series of decisions very quickly, many of which were unpopular. Overall, I think we got it right. I think we did the right thing.
Then came the hot stepper, asking a question of a higher degree.
My name is Miguel Williams, but you can call I Stepper.
Stepper.
Yeah, man. That is quite sufficient. Yeah, man. My question has to do and surrounds U.S. policy as it regards the legalization, the decriminalization of marijuana.
How did I anticipate this question?
Man. Yeah, man. And it's yeah, man.
How did I guess this question?
Yes, and Mr. President, it really comes on the foreground of we face economic challenges with the IMF, etc. And we find realistically that the hemp industry, the marijuana industry, provides a highly feasible alternative to rise up out of poverty. So I'm wanting to understand and to understand how US is visioning, how would you see Jamaica pushing forward on a decriminalization, legalization emphasis on the hemp industry? Give thanks.
Well, let me, I do want to separate out what are serious issues in the United States and then how that relates to our foreign policy and our interactions with the region. There is the issue of legalization of marijuana, and then there is the issue of decriminalizing or dealing with the incarceration and in some cases devastation of communities as a consequence of nonviolent drug offenses. I know on paper a lot of folks think, you know what, if we just legalize marijuana, then it'll reduce the money flowing into the transnational drug trade, there are more revenues and jobs created. I have to tell you that it's not a silver bullet. Because, first of all, if you are legalizing marijuana, then how do you deal with other drugs? And so I think we have to have a conversation about this, but our current policy continues to be that in the United States we need to decrease demand. We need to focus on a public health approach to decreasing demand. We have to stop the flow of guns and cash into the Caribbean and Central America and Latin America. And at the same time, I think the Caribbean, Latin America, Central America have to cooperate with us to try to shrink the power of the transnational drug organizations that are vicious.
He may be the most powerful man in the world, but how powerful would he be if he didn't meet the fastest man in the world, Jamaica's and the region's own Usain Bolt?
Hold on a second.
When it's all said and done, it will be noted the president's visit was worth it, a memorable event, one that has found its way in the archives of UWI.
I was wondering if after your term has ended, would you mind coming to the Turks and Caicos vacation?
You know, on the second question, absolutely. Well, I'll do some island hopping once I'm out of office.
The jonkonu's fife, the rhythm of the drum, the strum of the pan, the lilt of the voice from island to mainland. all pigments and tones, old and young, his and hers, all we are one. You, we, me. This is UWI TV.
In July this year, the University of the West Indies, Mona, hosted Dr. Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Rowley's agenda was to foster and strengthen regional integration and to address issues affecting the growth of the region. Here's highlights of Dr. Rowley's seminar, which includes a message from Vice Chancellor Sir Hilary Beckles.
What is the nature of this moment? What is the nature of this moment into which we have welcomed Dr. Rowley here to speak to us? Well, we know a number of things about this moment. One, there is a perception that is growing and is finding traction in academia that we, the Caribbean peoples, we are running out of energy and losing our focus. We have now built nation states, we have independent nations, we have a younger generation of students who are looking to the future, and at this critical moment, we seem to be lacking in energy for another thrust. It is in this moment that Dr. Rowley has intervened. We have been going through the stresses and the strains of economic decline in this region now for the better part of 30 years. We are now seeking through our strategic planning to re-legitimize our university among our people. And what you have done is to re-legitimize the integration movement and its integrity for the future. He is a great Caribbean statesman, prepared by this university for this role, and his time has come.
Dr. Rowley started his address by reliving his days as a student at the University of the West Indies. He also highlighted the plight of the region, which he says has lost its belief.
I've left this place in the 70s. But during that time, when I was like you students, if I'm allowed to say, those were the golden ages of Jamaica. It was the time when Lawrence Rowe appeared on the scene. It was the time when Michael Holding appeared on the scene. It was the time when Foreman met Fraser at the National Stadium. Those were heady moments for us as students. It was also the time when we burned the red gongs. And also it was a time when students were compelled to have meals together at least 3 times a week, so as to ensure that the bonding of Caribbean people took place over the meals of the week. There's a certain element of cynicism that pervades our society in the Caribbean. And disappointingly, it, if examined, can be deemed to have come or be coming from a loss of ownership of our space and an absence of confidence in where we're going. The comment came forward that it might be that it is not that we don't know who we are. It might not be that we have not identified the problems that we're facing. It is not that we may not have identified the solutions. But what might be happening is that we are timid in the face of the consequences of the decisions that we have to make.
In recent months, the issue of travel and the right to enter CARICOM member countries have been at the center of regional discussions. Dr. Rowley sought to address those issues, especially the concerns of Jamaicans being denied entry into Trinidad and Tobago.
We ought not to be generalizing about Jamaicans with respect to the circumstance of a Jamaican. every person who appears at a border is to be dealt with as an individual in his or her own right. It has been quite a misunderstanding that Jamaicans were being singled out for special treatment and bad treatment in Trinidad and Tobago. I reject that out of hand. If we look at it from the point of view of Jamaicans traveling to Trinidad and Tobago, you will see that there are tens of thousands of Jamaicans who are conducting their business in Trinidad and Tobago without any problem whatsoever. And you will see that 97% of the Jamaicans who left to come to Trinidad and Tobago entered with no problem. And the problems that seem to have taken the center stage on the front page are the circumstances of 3%. I don't know the details of every single one of them, but some of those 3%, some of those within that 3%, are persons who had failed to qualify for entry under permissible arrangements. We have to be honest that we have not in place a federation or a single territory. What we are living within is a situation of a series of nations with individual sovereignties covered by individual laws. And the movement within our territories is in the context of movement between nations who have agreed within the CARICOM Treaty to allow certain facilitations.
However, Dr. Rowley strongly believes the Caribbean can become unified through the University of the West Indies and says the university must play a huge role in regional integration.
I am in firm belief that if we resort to the confidence of the West Indian manhood, that Joe, Eric Williams and Bradshaw and Gary and those people, the challenges of today can be overcome. But we have to have the raw material, we have to have the foundation, and we have to have the human capital that is prepared to be spent on it. And when we look for that, the best place to find it, when we don't find it on the West Indies cricket field, we find it in UWI. So today, I want to thank you all for recognizing my presence on this campus and receiving me and my wife Sharon and my colleagues from the government. And I want to thank the government and people of Jamaica for receiving us so warmly. And as we go forward, as one Caribbean people, we say, may God bless us all.
Every day I tell myself I can, I must, I will. The generation of the present is in my hands. I pave the way for the next to come. Each day we say, I can, I must, I will. And every day we do. You, we, me.
UWI TV, Caribbean Matters. Coming up next on UWI TV,
Of what we think, hear, and do is a product of the ads that we read, see, and hear every day. How much of the world do we experience through the eyes of the media? Find out next as we join the conversation at the University of the West Indies. They discuss dying to be beautiful.
I'm Karen Carpenter, and I'll be moderating the panel. I'm going to introduce our presenters, and then I'm going to ask them to briefly tell us their own viewpoints on this dying to be beautiful and what the media is contributing to it. And Orville is a lecturer in sociology and Caribbean culture. He's completing his PhD thesis, and he teaches in the Department of Management Studies and the Open Campus. In the middle, we have our special guest, Renee Gordon, and many of you will recognize Renee. She's a fashion director and general manager at Pulse Investments Limited. And I think most people know that Pulse is responsible for putting many of our models on the map. But if you are visiting us from elsewhere and don't know that, Pulse is our foremost modeling agency, and therefore they play a big role in what we consider as beautiful, and certainly what our young people consider as beautiful. And finally, Patrick Pendergrass, who was just our moderator, is lecturer and coordinator of the CARMAC program at UWI, and his interests are in community media and empowerment. I'm going to start with Becky and ask you to give us your initial thoughts on how the media is contributing to this imaging.
If you watch your television tonight with a piece of paper and a pen, note how many advertisements will portray black people in a positive image and how many will portray it in a negative image. Notice as well, if you see advertisements about 401k, that's retirement fund, you'll see two white persons on a boat enjoying themselves. But if you see an advertisement for Keopectate, there are 2 or 3 black persons who really need to go. But what people don't realize is that I remember Barishavan saying that if you don't know your place, somebody will put you in your place. And so if we have no strong identity of what we are and what we are about, the media will put you in your place, because the media will give you images of what you're supposed to be. And we embrace those images so easily. Why? They are available on every single thing that you touch. Your phone, your computer, the internet, you are bombarded by the images. You know what happens with that bombardment by the images? After a time, a lie can look like a truth. Because you see it so often, over and over and over. And so it is for us to when we teach, like for me, when I teach my students, there's this thing as Professor Ekin referred to, overstand, the insight. Not just the knowledge, but you also must also gain insight into who you are, where you're from, what are your historical genesis, how they affect you, and where you're going. Because you are not expected in your wee small corner every minute of the day to separate images that are coming at you, to which those which are true, not true, merely gimmick, as the case may be. And that is very, very difficult to do for some people, especially the more you lack education, the more you lack that insight. Run to the shop and buy all these products to look like this person. You ask people why they bleach and they say they don't know. They figure it makes them look better, but better how? Because notice, these people have no notion of becoming white. They just want to bleach because they don't change any behavior to reflect a whiteness. They just bleach.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Renee?
This is a topic that's I'm very interested in, and as a model, I'll sort of give you a little genesis of my beginnings as a model and just my viewpoint on where I see this whole beauty and body imaging sort of perspective. And I mention that because I think we very often overlook the importance of lifestyle, the choices that we make in relation to our lifestyles, and how that affect whether or not we think of ourselves as being beautiful. And I think that for me personally, being healthy and being fit and doing sports and exercising contributes very much to how I feel in relation to beauty, from the core to the surface. I mean, we know about the virtues of exercise and how it does well for the skin, for the body, the whole agility. And I think that very often we underestimate the power of making those choices and how those choices help us to, or how those choices affect us feeling beautiful. And so in my daily goings about at Pulse, working in the fashion and beauty business, I encounter tons of model hopefuls who are coming with the egos and the ambitions to become the next international model. And of course, it's sort of an aspiration to a standard of beauty as seen by magazine editors and people who make the decisions in relation to who gets what campaign in the world of modeling. And so I think for me, that very basic acceptance of self is one of the critical and most important things about how you think of yourself as being beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Remy.
So, are we all puppets of the media?
Yes, I do watch commercials, and yes, I am influenced sometimes. Depends on the commercial.
I watch a lot of commercials, and I'm influenced by some, not all.
Commercials, no. Honestly, if I could skip all the commercials, then I would.
I buy things based on how it makes me look.
Well, all of what I buy should make me look good, right?
Well, yeah, I only buy what makes me look good.
A lot of times I buy stuff that I saw on TV and I thought it would work for me, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah, I've bought stuff already through advertisements, and then afterwards I'm like, I don't need this.
Sometimes you'll see the advertisement and you have not given it good thought, and sometimes just the colors and this sound or whatever they are saying, you get amused by it and you get enticed. So you go out and you purchase, but when you come home and you look, it doesn't look like what was advertised.
Yes, waist trainer. Yes, I did have a big gut, so yes.
Yes, I bought phones and computers, but never really realized that I didn't want them. Most things on advertisements, if I see something on an advertisement and I want it, then something I'm gonna want and I'm gonna keep.
Do the media determine what we think about ourselves? We continue on Dying to be Beautiful.
Yesterday we heard talk about, segmenting the audience. Well, it's the same way that the media are in fact segmented. We come to accept that when we bring them together as a collective, they will have certain kinds of impact on us. So there is no real media position. The other thing is that I want to say is that we have to also remember that when we talk about media, even in its segmented sense or in its homogeneous sense, as we come to try to make it so that we have ease for understanding, that there is the technology and there are people. Right? And the technology cannot function on its own. The content, the products, the services that are created for media are actually created by people. When it comes to the whole thing of our own understanding, as Romain said, our understanding of self, very often what we're going to find is that which we are creating and producing and putting out there is also a reflection of how we see ourselves functioning in relation to media. When it comes to the technology, there is the whole belief, really, and some of us who are in television still struggling to understand. But when you think about it, what we saw yesterday, the examples, as Dr. Edwards said, we are not faced with that kind of deliberate presentation as we've seen with in other parts in terms of this white product will make you so. I mean, it's much more subtle. As my friend would say, it's much more supple in the way we create these messages. The first one has to do with the fact that it is such a powerful part of the socialization process. But it is also a very powerful part of the resocialization process. In other words, the same media that you use to get people to behave in a certain way, it's the same media you find that you're going to have to use to undo that. And the second part of that duality is that media really are into the business of making money. They're serving their audiences and advertisers at the same time. And that in itself can also be a problem. So I just want to put that in the mix. And my contribution would be more from that side than in terms of, how the presentations have been going, in terms of, what is its role in promoting and some of the counter that we've seen to that kind of approach.
Thank you, Patrick. I see Becky ready to respond to something, but I have a question for each of you. Has the concept of white changed in Jamaica? Is your white my white? That's the question.
No, the concept of whiteness, remember, race is socially constructed. Color is socially constructed. Because depending on where you are, the issue of race takes on a particular type. When I get to find out how the U.S. was serious about race was when they separated white from Hispanic. Now, for most of us Jamaicans, Hispanics look white. Majority of them. That is those who look phenotypically white. But the U.S. was so specific that no, unless you're European white, in terms of your phenotypical features, then you're not white. So there are whites and there are Hispanics. And so the social construction of my idea with white, of my idea of with black and brown, is always going to be a social construction. I've had friends who, they actually take white on immigration form. When they reach to the counter with immigration officer, he called another friend of his and he held his belly and he laughed for about 10 minutes and then gathered himself and then crossed out the white and put black. But she thought she was white. But unless she was phenotypically white, she wasn't white. And so the notion of white and black, we got an orientation from colonialism which has always confused us and still remain with us. There's no race as in white, except that somebody views someone as being white.
Remy talked about lifestyle and the rigors of being under a mother who was a health freak. Thank goodness for mothers. But I wanted to both ask and sort of offer a challenge. In what ways does Pulse, because you are here representing Pulse, in what ways does Pulse promulgate that notion of in choosing a model, you're looking at a lifestyle?
We have had a culture in Jamaica where food is not necessarily something that is, awful or we need to consume in order to have energy to go about our businesses. So my remit is to ensure that the models are properly briefed in relation to their health and lifestyle so that when they get onto the international stage, they can actually remain good models, and good models meaning that you have to remain lean and be able to fit into the samples and so on and so forth, but maintain that healthy lifestyle. So there isn't that pressure of having to go on too much of a sort of risky diets that would affect your health and lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And so that is all, I always encourage those choices so that they don't have to feel that pressure of having to do certain things that are totally unhealthy for them to remain professionals in the business.
Patrick, with regard to the notion of shaping and reshaping, of media being both a product of what people see and a vehicle for teaching people, are we not looking at research-based media? Isn't there market research that tells us who is a Jamaican and what is an acceptable image for a product?
No, my area is not in advertising, but what I do know is that based on the studies that the people involved have been looking at, especially those who are creating messages around what you call healthy lifestyle behaviors, that's for them that it's more about finding a personality that can match a particular message rather than perpetuating a look.
Okay.
That's the feeling that I have.
Okay.
But what do you think?
I don't admire models at all because they don't eat food, and I'm a food lover, of course. So yes.
No, not for me, no. It depends on the product and if I want it.
No, they're all just basically false advertisements. So, nah, not really.
Those who love hamburgers, when they watch that now, they go and buy a hamburger and say, but it is not looking like the one I saw on TV. So they they spray it and they do all kind of things. So they make up things to make it look like it's good, but really and truly, the real thing is not really as it is advertised.
Every day I tell myself I can, I must, I will. The generation of the present is in my hands. I pave the way for the next to come. Each day we say I can, I must, I will. And every day we do. You, we, me.
UWI TV, Caribbean Matters.
For me, I think advertising is false, of course, because half of the time, the products that they're selling, it doesn't work. For example, the waist trainer.
No, I would pay more for cables to see good local shows. Of course, I've never been bored about watching anything about Jamaica.
It depends on the type of ad. I don't believe every one of them will tell the truth because it's based on how they want to draw their attention to whoever they want to attract to. So I don't believe all of them are.
I believe advertising is false. They make up the things to look prettier than they normally do. I watched a YouTube once to see how they advertise hamburgers and realize that, the fancy things they do to the hamburger, that even well done, just to let it look larger than it is.
Most of the time, I think it's false because they don't actually tell you what's the main side effects are, what's the downfall in the products.
Orville Beckford picks up the conversation on the media's influence on our minds.
To Patrick's definition, or simple definition of the media of being people, machine, I said
and
no.
Technology.
And technology. I said no. So, of course, the media itself can be seen as just the people behind the cameras and the technology. We come to the technology. The technology itself is not existential by itself. The technology is what we want it to portray. You look at even the advertisement for both, the head, I can't remember if it's, but the hair treatment. When they show before, the man looked very, of course, after. Yes, because they give you a particular image that they want you to get. So before, he's very depressed. But of course, after the hair treatment. But of course, the whole concept of how the person looks. They decide what image you see. So they will lift the chin, whiten the teeth, give the person more hair, and whatever it is, in order to reconstruct in your mind certain concept that they want you to get. You're left with very little choice, except your personal space, to decide within, to quote Netflix, that battle for space, for you to decide what you become, what you believe, and what you don't believe. And then you're so bombarded on all fronts by issues that they want you to believe that if you're not careful, you give up on that battle for space.
Okay. But the point I'm trying to make is that very often we don't what you'd call, separate them so that we can come to a much better understanding of what is it that we're dealing with. Certainly, what we've seen, especially in the last 15, 20 years, is that there is a way in which the ownership is actually being converged into smaller groups of owners. So that in as much as we have seen an opening up of the media, and Pulse can produce their own show, anybody can produce their own show now, but guess what? If you don't come to the media house and the owners with the kind of support that will demonstrate that you can actually make some money from it,
your product still won't find a space. Where you have large markets, all right, you will find you can have owners of media who will take particular political stance or social stance, but where you have smaller audiences, then you're going to find a little bit of a struggle in terms of how we do that, right? And the ownership issue is very important in the way we present the material, but it's not so much about the values and attitudes of the owners as much as whether it can in fact make them the kind of profit.
A point he made that I don't even think he realized when he said that it's not so much what is presented, but in terms of norms and values of the owner, but the profit, because it means that values and attitude are expendable at the expense of profit.
Yes. It's called capitalism. Remy, you wanted to
Well, I don't think so much anymore that it is difficult to get local programming on the air. I think more and more Jamaicans and Caribbean people are sort of hungry to see themselves on television.
There has always been what I think is a hunger for seeing ourselves on television. What I think has changed is that now we have smaller independent production houses, right? And so we're getting a diversity. There was a time when the ownership also decided what the content would have been. What we have now is an opening up, and we give small producers a chance, and they can spend time making sure that it meets the production values that we need and quality and standards, but at the same time would be able to bring to the media house, which now become just a conduit, right? For your individual company's values and how you would want to deal with particular issues to get a chance, a voice, a place. That is probably what is the best thing that has come out of the opening of media in the last 20 years for our part of the world.
And I'm throwing out a final question. How much of this are we assuming is vendors' issue? In other words, the quote-unquote capitalist who is looking for profit. And how much of it is really dictated by the public? Is it that the public wants these images?
The body image alone will not be the only thing that sells the product. There is also the cultural content, which of course a number of advertising companies are ignoring. How we think as Jamaican culturally and what are the cultural impact on our choices.
Okay, thank you. Remy, do you want to have any final comments? Patrick?
The challenge I think we are facing is that when we look at the primary agents of socialization, there was a time when we could probably, Dr. Taylor, say that media, kind of reinforce. I think now what is happening is that media seem to be becoming the primary source of agent of socialization, and so we're beginning to see a little challenge there.
I want to thank the panel and thank you for listening.
The media and the battle for our minds. Who will be the ultimate winner? The debate continues. The sun rises on the blessed lands of our ancestors. Sun-kissed children of the Caribbean awaken, strengthened by a brutal past. With your abiding faith, go, take your place at the center of the world. You, we, me.
This is UWI TV. Coming up next on UWI TV,
For 60 years, the University of the West Indies has been living up to its mandate to support the development of the Caribbean region by advancing education and creating knowledge through excellence. It is this focus that has guided the UWI over the years and created a cadre of professionals who have become leaders and influencers in their respective countries, the Caribbean region, and across the globe. This is The Influencers, an interview program with Caribbean leaders who have walked through the gates of the UWI and are now making their mark in the world. The UWI has over 45,000 students with 9,000 graduating annually and more than 120,000 alumni. This impressive network of UWI alumni includes one Nobel laureate, dozens of Rhodes Scholars, and more than 18 current and former Caribbean prime ministers and heads of state. From the Man Booker and Emmy Award winners, CEOs to entrepreneurs, academics to artists, leaders of nations to leaders across all sectors, UWI's network of alumni is impacting the globe. The institution's distinguished list of honorary graduates boasts the likes of Usain Bolt, Brian Lara, the Right Reverend Bishop Desmond Tutu, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, and Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. This week, we feature Carleen Salmon, Assistant Executive Director at the Broadcasting Commission, graduate of the Norman Manley Law School, and former coordinator and lecturer in media management at the Caribbean Institute of Media and Communication at the UWI. In this episode of The Influencers, we will find out more about Carleen Salmon, her time as a student on campus, the person behind the name and title, and her influences.
Thanks for joining us, Carleen.
No problem, my pleasure.
Tell me, you've been in this business for a very long time. You're very well known professionally, but who is Carleen Salmon?
That's a very tough question, because Carleen Salmon is many things. She's a mother, primarily a mother. My daughter will tell you. I am a daughter myself, because although my mother died about 10 years ago, my father's still alive, so I'm still a daughter. And I am a Jamaican, passionate about Jamaica and its development, which is why, unlike many of my colleagues or persons I went to high school with, I haven't migrated. The temptation has been there, but I just believe in Jamaica, and I believe somehow we're going to bend the corner and become something, even not become something great, because I think we are a great nation, but achieve all that we are potentially capable of. So that in a nutshell is Carleen.
Growing up, tell me, what were some of the things that you wanted, some of the dreams that you had for yourself?
Well, I remember when I was about 5, my mother had one of these calculators. You know those big, they were like phones, what phones look like now. And I used to play on her calculator. And I guess I was sort of, psychic, because I used it as a phone, because at the time I was running industries and empires all over the world. So I had a sheep farm in Australia. What did I have in Canada? I forget what I had in Canada. I had empires all over the world, and I was in Jamaica running all of them. So I suppose at some point I wanted to do business. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But like every child who talks a lot, I guess from an early age, people always said, oh, you're going to be a lawyer like your father. And so I grew up with this understanding that at some point in my life I would do law. It didn't happen, and it's primarily my father's fault. He'll probably kill me for saying this. But what happened was, I remember we was at a family dinner. I remember this quite clearly, because people would always say to my father, so is your daughter going to become a lawyer like you and follow in your footsteps? And he says, I think that would be good. But what I really want her to do, I've always said, if I had a child, I'd want that child to do communication. And at that time, in those old days, we called it mass communication. So he said he always wanted, he'd encourage anyone, who was thinking of some sort of academic career or pursuing some form of study to do mass communications. And here's why. When he was studying law in England in the latter part of the 60s, with all the black rights movements, the civil rights movements in the United States spilling across the world, there was a freedom fighter, I think he was a member of the Black Panthers, a gentleman called Stokely Carmichael. He changed his name. He later became, converted to Islam and changed his name. I don't remember his Muslim name now. But Daddy said that Stokely Carmichael was this very handsome, very commanding presence, good to look at. And so daddy's in England studying, and he sees coverage of either something that Stokely Carmichael had said or that he was coming to England. I can't remember the context, but there was this picture of Stokely Carmichael on the front page of some British newspaper. And he said that he could barely recognize Stokely Carmichael. This was not, the picture didn't accurately represent the man that Daddy knew of. And he said he believed that it was a deliberate plot by the British media then to make him look menacing and to distort his features, to distort his image in a way to kind of take away from the message that Stokely Carmichael was preaching. And he said to himself at that moment, he recognized the power of media, and that if black people were to ever think about positively representing themselves, positively advancing ideas and notions, about the black identity, then we'd have to get control of the media. We would have to become creators of content, and so that's where that came from. And so when it came time for me to consider university now, I applied and did film and sociology, and came back and worked for a couple of years in the production industry. That's how I got to be where I am today.
You speak of your father and the influence that he's had on your career. Your mother went to the UWI and she was a teacher, and she's very well known in the community in Mandeville. Tell me, what influence did she have as a UWI graduate, and what stories did she heard?
Oh my goodness! I think UWI is the best thing that ever happened to my mother. Again, if she were alive, she'd kill me for saying that. But I really, growing up around our dining room table, the stories about UWI. One stands out in my mind. It was, my parents would describe it as the, in quotation marks, the Rodney upheaval of 1968, I believe it was, when Walter Rodney was banned from landing in Jamaica, and the campus was shut down. There were mass protests all over. And I remember that story in particular. I also remember her Seacold Hall stories. Oh my goodness. So when I finally got on the campus, I had to go and see, I didn't actually go inside, but I had to go and see the Seacold Hall that she was always talking about. And she always talked about her Seacold lights and the things that they got up to. And yeah, I remember one of her stories was that one night, some guys from Chancellor got drunk. And they came over to Seacold Hall and decided to serenade the ladies of Seacold Hall. Well, my mother was having none of it. So she gets up in the night and she hears this thing going on outside. She goes to the pantry or wherever, kitchen or wherever, and fills a bucket of water and comes out and douses the Chancellor men. So, they all go away and they all think, everybody thinks that's the end of that. So a few weeks later, Mommy gets an invitation, formal invitation at Seacold Hall to come and have dinner with the Chancellor men. So she thought that, it was one of many invitations that went out. So she got dressed up and she went over, only to realize that she was the only female at the dinner. And when she came in, they're like, "Oh, welcome, oh Queen of Seacold." And they put her down. I mean, they treated her very nicely, right. But that was their way of getting back at her for having doused them with water. So stories like that. So the campus sounded like a very interesting and exciting place. And later on, I remember in sixth form, my very, very good friend, Sherry Wint, and I planned that we were actually going to live on Irving Hall, because that's where her sister had lived. And we had all plans to go there, but didn't quite work out. So my sojourn to UWI was somewhat delayed. But I had all the stories, and I lived UWI vicariously through my mom and through my friends.
It took you a while to get there on campus, and you had a lot of expectations, both for communication and then for UWI as well. You finally got on campus as a student at the Norman Manley Law School. Tell me, what was that like, being a student on that campus?
Well, the thing about Norman Manley is that Norman Manley tends to be a kind of world unto itself. So you know that you're on the campus and you're part of the campus, but because you're not moving around on the campus, I mean, except in my second year when they opened the new facility at Gibraltar Hall. If we still had occasionally we'd have a lecture at the old, the first Norman Manley Law School building, so we'd trek across campus there. But pretty much once you got to Norman Manley, all your classes were housed inside that facility, so you didn't really go outside much. Sometimes to the Faculty of Law for a lecture, or to the faculty library, or I didn't really go to the main library because I tend to be a software kind of person, so I got my textbooks soft copy and all that, because I had them on my laptop. But no, but it was an interesting experience, you know. Finally walking on some of the same pavements that my friends had walked, being on the ring road that my mother of all people participated in UWI Carnival. Can you believe that? Back in the 60s. And in fact, there's a picture at home of her dressed up as a nurse. They had some sort of thing. She was just with a stretcher and everything, and she was part of this group or whatever. So I first heard about the ring road from my mother. So it was interesting to actually drive onto the campus or walk on the campus and see the ring road that, you know, my mom told me about all those years ago.
Carleen Salmon will tell us more about her time on the UWI campus and how her experiences there have shaped her life. This is The Influencers. Let's go to the second half of our chat with Carleen Salmon, Assistant Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission, and find out about her time on the UWI campus and how her experiences there have shaped her life. This is The Influencers.
You told me before that you went abroad to study and you came back, and part of the dissertation that you had, you actually chose to examine Jamaica.
Yes.
And in doing so, you discovered Carmack and some persons who had been through Carmack. Tell us about that.
Oh, no, that whole thesis experience, I mean, that thesis, it was an undergraduate thesis that I did for my degree at Queen's University, because I did film and sociology. But I focused on JBC, you know, as a public service broadcaster, and by that time JBC hadn't been divested yet. It was about to be divested at that point. So I came in at the tail end. So I got to talk to some great people: Keith Campbell, Wycliffe Bennett, that's how we met Mr. Bennett, and of course Professor Agri Brown. I remember just calling up Professor Brown, and I was actually shocked when I got him on the phone. And I explained to him what it was I wanted to do, and I wanted to do an interview with him, and he said, sure, come, and he gave me a date and time. And that was, I've been on the campus before. I remember many years ago as a kid going with my mother. I don't know, she had something to do, get something from the registry or whatever at UWI. But that was my first real significant contact with the campus, with Professor Brown, and I went and did the interview with him. And I mean, he was so gracious. I couldn't believe that this man was the head of Carmack, and he'd taken the time to speak to me, an undergraduate. And also in that same meeting, he says, you know, I have a book that Professor Dunn had co-authored. He said, I have this book, and I think it'd be very, very useful for what you're doing. And he went on his shelf, he took the book, and he said, this is yours, and he gave it to me. And I'm like, giving it to me? He's like, no, take it. And of course, that book was very, very helpful in me putting together this thesis. It was a really great experience. And thereafter, I kept in touch with Professor Brown because a year later, I came back to him with a hardbound copy of my thesis to thank him, stuck my resume in there, and said to him, you know, I'm very interested in, you know, teaching, you know, whatever opportunities you have here. And he said, you know, I'll keep that in mind. And so we kind of kept in touch. And then I went away and I did my master's and came back and again called him up and said, you know, I'm back and I'm job hunting. So he says, you know, we're going to find a way for you to teach. And so I remember it was in the first half of 2000, he called me and said, look, I told you I was going to find a way for you to come and teach at Carmack. And he says, I found a spot for you. We do this master's in communication. At the time, it was a Master of Arts in Communication Studies. And we have a module called Media Management, because I'd gone away to study Media Management. So he thought, you know, I'd love for you to come and teach this course. And so I started that in 2000 and did that for a few years. In fact, I at one point coordinated the course, but I got to work with some great people, because shortly after that, I think Professor Brown got elevated to the faculty level, and so it was Dr. De Bruin who was in charge of Carmack, worked with her, later with Professor Dunn. But it was really, really, really good. It was, that was my second time teaching at the university level, because I taught at NCU before. I was working at NCU before, taught first year Intro to Communications. But this first class I taught was an experience, because I remember Dr. De Bruin sent me the class list, and when I looked at the list, I'm like, well, these people can teach me about media management, because you had people like Faye Ellington, Simone Clark Cooper in the class, and I'm like, but, you know, but it turned out, and Colin Blair, who at one point was at Nationwide, was in that class. That class was a great class. I mean, not that the other classes weren't great, but that was my first class, and I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed teaching them and interacting with them. It was a really, really, really good experience.
Let's talk about the Carmack class. You've talked about people who, the class had quite a bit of people from different levels of experience and education. What was that like? How did that add to the end product of what the students learned?
Well, you know, it's funny, because as you say, from a wide variety of backgrounds, because about a few months ago, I was in PriceSmart, and this guy, I recognized him, and I was trying to figure out where I know him from, and then he came up to me, he said, you taught me at Carmack. And then I remembered he was actually a soldier and had come to do the Masters in Communication. So as I said, in that class, you had broadcasters, you had people from print media, and here was this soldier. I remember there was a gentleman from the Ministry of Education as well. Well, I don't know how, I can't say how, you know, for them having that mix affected the end product, but for me it was a very enlightening experience, you know, because I remember giving illustrations, you know, from my own experience of the concepts that I was teaching them. And they too, I mean, would be able to share their own experiences, you know. Faye having been a senior broadcaster, I mean, of many, many years of experience, bringing her own to bear on it. And of course, these persons from different backgrounds, you know. Yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Carmack, as well as the UWI generally, also has quite a bit of people from different islands as well. So you'd have people who are not only from Jamaica, but from other Caribbean islands. How much more interesting was that in terms of the dynamic of being in a group of people from different places, you know, different experiences, but also from different countries?
Okay. Well, in the first year, I don't recall it being that diverse. I remember there was a lot of Jamaican professionals in the first year. But in subsequent years, you got people, I remember there were some persons from Guyana and Trinidad in subsequent years. And that was interesting as well, because they brought, you know, different perspectives. I remember in particular there was this chap, can't recall his name right now, but he went on to become a cricket journalist. I think he came from that. That is what he was doing, and he was just doing the masters. So that was interesting to have those kinds of perspectives and engagements in the class. Certainly added to it.
Having taught for several years at Carmack, it seems to have stirred up something inside of you to actually go out into the community and to actually teach. You're not a teacher anymore, but you, as part of your portfolio at the Broadcasting Commission, you do a lot of outreach, going to classes and talking to students. Tell me about that.
Okay, well, I mean, I can't take full credit for that. We have a very engaging and dynamic executive director, Cordell Green, whose background, of course, is also in broadcasting. He's, of course, an attorney at law, but his first professional engagement was as a broadcaster.
And also UWI graduate.
And also a UWI graduate. And the thing about our mission here at the Commission is that we recognize that because of the way that the media environment is evolving, that there are so many opportunities for people, especially particularly for children and young adults to engage with content from all sorts of platforms. And so we recognize that the traditional conventional methods of regulation, where you say to a broadcaster, okay, here's a raft of regulations, these are the things that you must not do, and if you do, we're going to sanction you. That kind of regulation is not going to work in a space like that anymore. So you might, you're going to have a regulated space and a vast unregulated space where people can interact with all kinds of information. And so one of the things that we came up with, and Cordell has been very passionate about, is what we call our media literacy or digital literacy program. And how that manifested itself initially, and it continues today, is through what we call our schools outreach program. So we go into schools across Jamaica. I can't tell you some of the places that we've been to. It's been very, very interesting and exciting. We go all across the country, schools all over Jamaica, and we essentially, what we want to do, we try to go to schools, to a lot of schools that don't automatically pop up into people's consciousness, so and what we want, and the rationale behind that is that we want to introduce our kids to the notion that in the digital world, almost everybody is equal. There are a lot of equal opportunities, and so what we do is we start telling them about people who have, with not much in terms of resources, but just access to the technology, have found their niche and have benefited positively from, their entrepreneurial activities in the digital media world. And not only have they benefited themselves, but they've also, helped others and that kind of thing. So we want to show them, get them excited about like Mark Zuckerberg and even some of our local entrepreneurs, who have done phenomenally well in the new media field. Tell them about opportunities, and then introduce them to some of the, the potential difficulties or challenges that they can face in the new media space, and how they must manage what we call their digital selves. So we sell them on the opportunities and say, all right, look, these are the great things that happen, and we want you to take advantage of these opportunities. But here are some of the things that you need to look out for as you go along. Be careful where you click, you always need digital footprint and how it can affect you later in life and that kind of thing. So yeah, and it's something I enjoy doing. I don't know, I suppose since the first time I stood up in front of a class at NCU and then later at Caramac, doing that kind of engagement, teaching has really prepared me for these kinds of activities, the school outreach programs, and boy, I have a lot of fun when I go there with those kids.
You're watching The Influencers on UWI TV.
Hi, I'm Camille Hamilton. I'm 23 years old. I'm a graduate of the University of the West Indies, and you're watching UWI TV.
Aziz Salam, representing, and you're watching UWI TV.
Hey, my name is Paulette Stewart, and I'm the head of the Department of Library and Information Studies. And we are watching UWI TV.
Hi, my name is Shanna. And I'm Triselle. And you're watching UWI TV.
Hi, my name is Malik Martini. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm studying applied chemistry here at UWI, and you're watching UWI TV.
My name is Vanessa Blackstock, and I study physiology.
My name is Vanessa Cooks, and I study political science and a minor in gender studies, and you're watching UWI TV.
I'm Matthew Duval. I'm a third-year medical student. Thanks for watching UWI TV.
While I was on campus in undergrad at Caramac, Professor Agrabone was a great influence on me as well. And one of the things that he told us, which really made a fundamental mark on my life professionally, internationally, is that new media created a huge opportunity for us to be way more than we probably could have been traditionally, because there was no access at a very much lower entry point than normal, and plus there's just more opportunities. Tell me how it is that you've seen new media change access and the influence Jamaica has had on the world, and even in terms of Jamaicans being able to publish and to create where they would have been contained previously.
Well, I mean, it's funny. I had a conversation earlier with your crew. We were, as they were setting up, we were talking about shooting on different formats, and I was saying to them, you know, the purists among us still maintain that film. You know, if you shoot on film, film has become a high art form. You know, but the costs associated with shooting on film are prohibitive to the average person, because it's not just shooting, but it's also the processing, the lighting and the processing, the after shoot processing before you even get to the point of editing, you know. And I was saying to them that video, the beauty of digital, because digital has transformed the landscape completely, has made it, as you said, made access very, very easy. The costs have gone down, the size of the equipment has gone down. And I mean, in terms of the impact on us as Jamaicans and then our impact on the world, I think of something as simple as our music videos. I remember when I came back from Queens in 1996, I was working at CPTC. And at that time, you just had some of these local channels just coming out, Entertainment Plus, I think it was, with Kevin Lee. And Kevin was doing some exciting things with video, with digital. And producers like Kevin using digital cameras, digital editing techniques, brought in a lot of the effects that our now later generation of video producers are just now, you know, getting into and using. And I think that really the quality of our video production, music video production, and other forms of production of content vastly improved, and we became even more attractive to an international space. And then of course you had things like, and I'm going way back now, because you know, you have to kind of you know, acknowledge the contributions of those who have gone before us. There was a man, a visionary called Delroy Cowan, who established, you're probably too young, I don't even remember, in the latter part of the mid-90s, he actually had established a Jamaican satellite channel. I don't know if you remember. It was called, I cannot remember the name of it now, but when CVM was just starting, CVM didn't have enough material at the time to run a full 24 hours, and so they would tap into Mr. Cowan's satellite channel and run it in days. And those were the days, maybe some of these guys here, I see Mayhew nodding, might remember Cobra. Mad Cobra had a video called Flex, and I remember the first time I ever saw Flex was on this channel. Patra was a VJ on that channel, and as I say, that was a portal to the world. That, I mean, for the first time I saw some really high quality videos being produced and put out there. And then of course later, as I said, with people like Kevin Lee and Ras Kassa coming down the generations. And so just in terms of video music production, that's one element. Then later you had some of our people getting back into film, because one of the things that's always been a kind of disappointment for me is that Jamaica has not had a significant international hit since The Harder They Come. You know, I remember even when I was at university, as I said, I studied film, and The Harder They Come was actually mentioned in the textbook that I was studying, and it mentioned The Harder They Come, or gave it as an example of a cult film classic and how well it had done. And so to me, to see the development in the early 2000s and to the present time of the rebirth then of a film industry because of the technology, because you know why we haven't had an international hit of the scope of The Harder They Come is just the cost associated with film, with producing and shooting and producing on film. And so to me it's heartening to see the productions we've been able to do, like the Salter Brothers, Storm Salter, Better Must Come, Jeremy Whittaker, who I'm so proud of, who did his film, I think it was 2 years ago, and is still making the rounds now. So I really believe if the technology, if digital had not come into the landscape, then a lot of these artistic ambitions and representations that we're seeing, in the both in the music industry, music video industry, and the dramatic long form film industry, would not have taken place. And even our television shows, it's so much easier now to shoot and produce high quality local programs than it was, maybe say 10, 20 years ago, because the technology has really brought down the scope and scale, the costs associated with production.
As the Assistant Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission, you've interfaced with a lot of people who have gone to the UWI. But before even that, how do you think the institution of media and communication, CARMAC, has helped to shape the framework of media in Jamaica, by extension the Caribbean, having been the first school of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean?
Listen, awesome. I mean, if you just look at the caliber of personalities who work in the current crop of personalities who work in our media environment, as journalists. I mean, when I think about people like, Cliff Hughes, for example, well, let's not even mention Faye Ellington, because Faye would have gone through CARMAC, I think, should have done her diploma, I believe, at CARMAC. But we've had some very, very bright and engaging personalities come through CARMAC, and I think it's fabulous that as a region, a region beset by so much in terms of not being as advanced as some societies in terms of our economies, that we have been able to not only invest in, but to develop and expand an institution like CARMAC is phenomenal. And as I said, the kinds of the graduates that we've turned out, the quality graduates who end up working here in the local media, and I know of persons who have gone abroad who have done phenomenally well in journalism, in production. I think it's phenomenal.
Carleen, you studied in the UK, in Canada, and at the UWI in Jamaica. Tell me, you would be able to say, because you've had such an extensive experience, how important is it for a culturally relevant institution like the UWI for the region in terms of creating and regulating the different industries in the Caribbean?
No, it's very important and very relevant. And you mentioned that I studied in the UK and in Canada. I happened, interestingly enough, to study in Scotland and to study in Canada. And what is interesting about both those experiences is that those countries, being so close to a major market, a major media market, have had to struggle to maintain their cultural identity. Canada, sharing a common border with the United States, I think has it even greater than, say, Scotland and England, because America is such a major producer of cultural products, and Jamaica, being so close to the United States, could find itself in a position similar to Canada and similar to Scotland, if we're not careful about endeavoring to preserve our unique cultural identity. Because, as I said, the US market is so close, and because we speak English, it's natural for us to consume their cultural content. And so I really believe that we have to have the resources in terms of personnel who are trained in the production of content, so that we can always, when we turn on our televisions, not even our televisions, when you turn on our televisions, turn on our laptops, whatever screen we're interacting with, that there's an opportunity for the Jamaican voice, the Jamaican identity to be heard, because we are in danger. Although it is so strong and we've had such an impact on the world, there's a great danger as we proliferate into this multitude of screens, because the opportunities for intervention become less and less, for formal intervention become less and less. And so it is important to have institutions that can train people, like CARMAC, that can train people to produce content that can train people to ensure that there are Jamaican perspectives to stories. A very telling example came the other day in the midst of Hurricane Matthew. Hurricane Matthew was coming to Jamaica, and apparently on some of the U.S. Networks covering the whole passage of Hurricane Matthew, at one point they were reporting that we were being battered by Hurricane Matthew. They were, they just assumed based on the size of the weather system and its position, its proximity to Jamaica, that we were being battered, but nothing like that was happening. So thank God we have a strong cadre of media professionals, broadcasts and production houses that are able to generate the stories. We have strong news and current affairs culture in Jamaica. If you think about the amount of talk shows we have, the amount of current affairs programs, news discussion programs we have, plus our regular newscasts, it's good. And so I say that to say that we need to continue to fund institutions like CARMAC, like UWI, to ensure that we always have that kind of content. In terms of the regulatory framework, I believe that as regulators, we have to be forward thinking. We also have to recognize that we are not going to be able to regulate this diverse and divergent space. But I think where the opportunities for regulatory intervention exist is ensuring that a space is created to make, in the midst of all this noise, all these screens and all this content, that there is a space that is maintained for the Jamaican identity to be allowed to occupy that space, whether it's a public service broadcaster or encouraging local production in the same way that Canada has incentives for Canadian content production. Scotland has those incentives. We need to ensure that as regulators, that space is carved out. And the UWI has a role to play. We need to be creating minds that not only think about the nuts and bolts of production, but also minds that are thinking about things like management of content rights, setting of media policy, and even to the point of the it's helping to update the legislative framework that we have to ensure that these things I've talked about, that our culture is preserved and that there's always a space for the Jamaican voice to be heard.
There are lots of CARMAC graduates who also have gone and done law at the UWI because there's a natural synergy between law and media. But as a regulator as well, tell me, what interface do you have with other regulators in the Caribbean in terms of defining that policy, the laws as well, and being able to exchange resources and knowledge and experiences in the Caribbean?
Well, the thing is, there are always opportunities for engagement. In fact, just this week, there is a conference, the OCOR conference, which takes together regulators from across the Caribbean, brings us together in a common space. It's not just for broadcast, but you have the utilities regulators. And I suppose because media is becoming ubiquitous and access to media, access to digital content is becoming almost as important or it's attaining the status of a universal right to access, much in the same way as water and light and telephone are. It's natural for us to be drawn into that space. So you have occasions like that. And there are other occasions when, as a industry-specific body, we do get together. But what I find is that the larger territories will influence some of the policies in the smaller territories. So, for example, when the Broadcasting Commission in Jamaica, we issued some directives a few months ago in relation to some cable channels being broadcast in Jamaica. And shortly after that, we saw Trinidad, also taking the same steps. So you kind of see, that we do have an influence on each other beyond meeting in a common space and exchanging ideas. There are regulatory practices that we may take from Trinidad or the Eastern Caribbean and apply or infuse into our own space, whether in terms of drafting legislation, drafting policy, and vice versa.
or just even the steps that we may take, the operational steps that we may take in executing our mandate may be imitated by another territory. Vice versa, we may imitate as well.
Okay, well, thank you. It's been a lovely chat. We've learned quite a bit about you and about your work, the person and the work. That is Caroline Salmon. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you too, Carrie.
Join us again next time on The Influencers.
Every day I tell myself I can, I must, I will. The generation of the present is in my hands. I pave the way for the next to come. Each day we say I can, I must, I will. And every day we do. You, we, me.
UWI TV, Caribbean Matters. Up next on UWI TV.
This is Caribbean Campus. On April 27, 2016, the UWI inaugural Vice Chancellor Sportsman and Sportswoman of the Year Awards were held. There were 8 finalists from 4 campuses, but only 2 persons would emerge as winners. The ceremony was held on the UWI campus St. Augustine. Here are the highlights of that evening.
Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, University and campus executives, Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs in the Government of Trinidad and Tobago, Honorable Darrell Smith, the Principal Representative of the Government of Trinidad and Tobago today, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Campus Principal, Professor Clement Sankat, Managing Director of RBC Royal Bank, Mr. Darrell White, who is our sole sponsor of these awards, members of the Diplomatic Corps, heads of sporting organizations, sports personality and philanthropist, Mr. Darren Ganga, distinguished awardees, and representatives of the media, members of campus management, deans, members of staff, students, and other specially invited guests. Good evening. This evening's ceremony is as a result of a new awards program established by the university's Vice Chancellor, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles. Vice Chancellor Beckles, of course, is a man, as we all know, those of us who know him, to have a clear and expansive vision of where he wants to go with the West Indies, with the University of the West Indies, and especially so in the area of sport. In fact, he would like the University of the West Indies to be recognized regionally and internationally as a center for sporting excellence. Recognizing student athletes for their performance in sport at university level, as well as their integrity, volunteerism, and commitment to other aspects of university life is one step in achieving that goal.
We at the St. Augustine campus are always honored when the opportunity to host such a prestigious regional event of the UWI opens up to us. Before I continue, therefore, permit me to extend a special welcome to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, and say to you, Vice Chancellor, thanks for entrusting the St. Augustine campus with this first ceremony. Let me also congratulate you and thank you for conceiving of this sports award, and my hope, and I'm sure you dream of this, that this will grow from strength to strength under your watch and leadership. I think we should give our Vice Chancellor a round of applause. We all know of his commitment to sports in our region. Today, we celebrate the exceptional accomplishments of some of our students who stand as exemplars of the fact that one can indeed lead a balanced university experience. Our awardees today represent some of our best student athletes, or as I like to call them, scholar athletes. And they come from across our 4 campuses, St. Augustine, Caville, Mona, and the Open Campus. While only a few can be nominated as special awardees, I commend the efforts of all our athletes from the various campuses. It takes a very special individual to be able to spend a great amount of time in the classroom, and let me say, our University of West Indies, all of us who have passed through this, know how demanding it is in the academic sphere. But our students then have to spend as much time on the field of play while pushing themselves to the limits of their physical attributes. It is certainly an incredible gift that requires unparalleled discipline and commitment to sports and to studies. It is my hope we will continue to develop the discipline of sport and infuse it into the academic environment of this regional institution. In developing this area to effectively support these student athletes, we must make concessions. And you know, I was once in the Faculty of Engineering, and we know how tough we can be as academics and lecturers, especially cricketers who have to travel, tournaments. We must make concessions, as their needs are drastically different from the regular student. I think this is what we did for Jehu. Maybe we should brand his program or this program as the Gordon Initiative, and we should use this, embellish it, develop it as the way forward. And just as a reminder, Jehu graduated in January of this year with first-class honors. And we know about his goal-winning performance in the World Championships in 2013.
We'll be right back with more highlights of the UWI inaugural Vice Chancellor Sports Awards on Caribbean Campus. Welcome back to Caribbean Campus and highlights of the UWI inaugural Vice Chancellor Sports Awards. Let's join Professor Sir Hilary Beckles as he gives his address.
Good evening, everyone. Of late, I have been going home from work feeling rather tired. And after a week or two, I realize it is because I have hanging on my wall a picture of Usain Bolt and Shirley Ann Fraser-Price. And maybe in my subconscious mind, I have been trying to catch up with them, or proceeding each morning on the basis that I have to catch the fastest woman and the fastest man who have ever lived on this planet. But it's a wonderful image to see first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning, to see an image of humanity's fastest. And each morning I look at the photograph and I say, why should students have to choose? Students with natural athletic ability, why should they have to choose as to whether they should pursue their God-given talents or to go off to college? Why not do both? There is always a personal source of motivation in these policy issues. When I was 17 years old, I had the option of being a professional cricketer or going off to college. And I had two letters in my hands: an acceptance letter to university, an offer to be a professional cricketer. I was from a working class family. It was a very difficult decision to make, and I chose to go off to college. I have been a frustrated cricketer ever since. Because the fact is, it was my sole ambition in life to play cricket for the West Indies. I have seen many young people forced to make that difficult choice. And I'm happy to report that we have offered young people in the Caribbean an opportunity to do both simultaneously. But the fact is that we are citizens of a civilization that is rich and overblessed with sporting talent. In fact, no other civilization in the world has produced as many brilliant international sportsmen and sportswomen per capita than the Caribbean. It is a phenomenal achievement which we must never take for granted. But oftentimes we do take it for granted. Who could have imagined 20 years ago that the West Indies cricket test team will be a lowly test team? It was beyond our imagination. I have asked the Jamaican community to imagine 20 years from today if Jamaica is unable to attain a medal in the Olympic 100 meters. Right now, that is beyond our imagination. But these things do happen. And when they do, we have to ask the question, who should be held responsible? Who should be held responsible when a society loses excellence? You know, my discipline is economic history, and I know that the Swiss have been making the finest timepieces for 600 years. An entire civilization mobilized around ensuring that excellence once achieved is never, ever lost. How do you sustain it over centuries? The role of the university is critical to that process, absolutely vital to that process. And this is why the UWI is doing its utmost to ensure that this excellence we have achieved is not lost. But right under our noses, we have been cultivating these brilliant young people. And the time has now come for us to set them apart and to celebrate them and to communicate to all of them, to communicate to their families, to their friends, that in them we are willing to invest all that we have. Because that is a measure of respect we have for the student athlete. The student athlete who attends classes, who conducts research, but goes into the field of performance and demonstrates excellence. That is a phenomenal achievement. All universities ought to celebrate that achievement. So we have decided in short time, after consultation, that we will pursue the establishment of a faculty of sport in UWI. You may clap for that if you wish, I don't know. I wish to offer my personal congratulations to each and every one of you. I wish to say how much respect I have for all of you. Many of you I know personally and have been in conversation with you over time. Some of you I know your families because I've been a part of the conversation with your families to make sure that you stay the course. This is a moment for the university to celebrate you with the region and with the world. And it will not end there, because we intend to participate in your future as you plan your options when you have graduated and even beyond.
Sports is so important, and I want to I need to salute Professor Beckers for his vision with regard to that, and I have to congratulate you for your vision to have this event and to have this type of thinking as well. Really, when we think about it, where are we without sport? Where are we without the discipline that it gives you? Because Professor Hackett used the term discipline. You know, academically, you know, they always told you about discipline early on, but one of the things that I learned about being in sport for my life is it gave me it wasn't just about the discipline of building yourself towards a singular endeavor over and over by being better at it, but it taught you about winning graciously. It taught you about losing even more graciously, respecting your opponent. It taught you about character and what it takes to succeed, and that you can, within your own self, be a champion. And I wouldn't pretend to sing doing Bravo's song tonight. But sport, when taken to the highest level, is entertainment. But way beyond that, you know, we talk about the power of bringing communities together, which is what it reminds us, and that, what it's done in the Caribbean more than anything else. So, no question about the importance of sport in the region. And as a matter of fact, I would suggest that if our art and culture is the soul of the Caribbean, then sports is our spirit. Sports, and I say it is our spirit, because it speaks, you know, there was some criticism about the Caribbean, the West Indies team when they celebrated. You know, but wherever the West Indies team goes, no matter where we might be in the world standings, they always say the world needs West Indies cricket to be successful. And it was clear that everywhere we've played where we are not at home, if they don't want the home team to win, the next team they want to win is the West Indies team. And it is because of the spirit and the way in which we express ourselves through sport. So let's not lose sight of the depth of where it goes and where it takes us. It connects, and it is the spirit, I would say, of our community, of our countries, and of the region as well.
When we return, Darren Ganger, the guest speaker, will be at the podium. This is highlights of the UWI inaugural Vice Chancellor Sports Awards on Caribbean Campus. This is UWI TV.
Hi, I'm Camille Hamilton. I'm 23 years old. I'm a graduate of the University of the West Indies, and you're watching UWI TV.
Aziz Salam, representing, and you're watching UWI TV.
Hey, my name is Paulette Stewart. and I'm the head of the Department of Library and Information Studies. And we are watching UWI TV.
Hi, my name is Shanna.
And I'm Trissel. And you're
watching UWI TV.
Hi, my name is Malik Martini. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm studying applied chemistry here at UWI, and you're watching UWI TV.
My name is Vanessa Blackstock and I study physiology.
My name is Vanessa Cooks and I study political science and a minor in gender studies. And you're watching UWI TV.
I'm Matthew Duval. I'm a third-year medical student. Thanks for watching UWI TV.
Welcome back to Caribbean Campus and highlights of the UWI Vice Chancellor Sports Awards. Let's go straight to Darren Ganga, who has already begun his address.
My focus tonight will be on my life as a student athlete and the transition into the corporate world, a realm beyond the playing field. This is one topic I really do not need to research and to prepare, since it reflects a lot about my life growing up in Barkport, South Trinidad, to my student days at Naparima College, where I learned the art of balancing sports and academics, and to my university days studying law, and today directing sport at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, whilst intermittently also providing expert comments on the great game of cricket. I'm sure Professor Beckles would agree with me. Let me also say, I've heard a lot about the previous speakers, Mr. White being a former University of the West Indies student. And I think by association, I also recognize Dr. Mutu, who is here, and he could attest to this. When I was first selected for the West Indies team in 1998, I just finished A-levels from Naparima College. And I had a choice to make, whether to attend the University of the West Indies or go and play for the West Indies. And in that process, I had a chance to meet Dr. Mutu. And back then, I must admit, it was very challenging to do both and to be accepted by an institution that would allow you to be flexible. So today, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a proud moment for me as well, having had that challenge at a tender age. And what I've seen from the various videos and what I've heard from the previous speakers, I think the athletes should be excited about their future in both academia and sport. I'm very fortunate to have had parents who nurtured the importance of education and sport from childhood. I was never restricted by them to play sport. In fact, they encouraged me, but I had to learn the art of time management. My dad, being a teacher, provided great support for me in the classroom, and well, mom, as all moms do, provided indomitable support on the sideline. I know that this may be cliched, but it really takes a village to raise a child. And that is exactly what transpired in my own situation. My humble beginnings did not inhibit my desire to succeed. One should not believe that the nation owes you anything, but perhaps the fact that you owe the village and the wider community for the encouragement and support given in your formative years. In my own case, the Darren Ganga Foundation is just one aspect of how I've been able to return the favor. Success in academia and sport involves many sacrifices. The limited time for family life, sleepless nights, limited social life, and lonely hotel rooms across the world if you played international cricket for the West Indies. My concentration powers were tested on a regular basis. I recall vividly in my second tour to South Africa, I had a hard time playing test cricket and trying to retain content and law cases from my land law module. It takes persistence and a strong desire to keep focus to your goal to rise to the top. Active competition in national and international sport has its benefits, but I'm a firm believer that as an athlete, you must establish the right relationships when you're at the pinnacle of your respective sport. The way you present yourself as an athlete, coupled with the available networking at that elite level of sport, make for a sustainable impression which more often than not extends beyond the boundary. Many athletes use this as a platform to develop a career after active sport, as there is still currency in your brand.
We thank the UWI Arts Indian Classical Ensemble for an impeccable performance. Thank you very much. Now, although this evening's focus is on the first ever University Sportswoman and Sportsman of the Year, Vice Chancellor Beckles has chosen to honor athletes who have spotlighted the Caribbean through their individual achievements, and in some cases, team. These athletes all have a connection to the University of the West Indies. Let's now roll the video. Carlos Braffett.
The UWI program has prepared me for the big stage in two ways. Firstly, and probably more importantly, academically, it has made me more confident when conducting interviews and expressing myself in team meetings. Secondly, it gave me the opportunity to practice and hone my skills at a world-class facility, one of the only indoor centers in the Caribbean. I was able to repeat my skill and therefore get better over a period of time, so that when pressure situations are at hand, then I'm able to better trust my ability and trust my preparation. The UWI CC program has many benefits. For me, it bridged the gap between Barbados under-19 cricket and Barbados senior team cricket. It gave me the opportunity to continue my studies whilst pursuing my professional career. It's a delicate stage in a young man's career where he has to choose between continuing studies and being what society wants him to be, the next bank manager, lawyer, or doctor, or pursuing his dreams of becoming a professional sportsman. The UWI and CTC program gave me the opportunity to delay that decision and continue pursuing my career as well as my studies at the highest levels available in the region. What has Carlos Braffett taken away from the World Cup experience? Most importantly, never giving up and backing oneself. I didn't have as good a World Cup as I wanted to going into the final, but I backed my ability, I backed my preparation, and I just went out there and tried my best to do the job that the team needed at that point in time, and thankfully I was successful. Also, having faith. Quite religious, and is about having faith in the one above to give you the opportunity, but then allow you to take that opportunity to do what you need to do to help the team. To all young sports persons who have a dream of becoming professional athletes, success is like an iceberg. Preparation, the hardships, the failures, those are not seen. It's only the end of the road and the actual success, the gold medal, and the victory that we see. There will be a lot of ups and downs, a lot of bumps, a very rocky road, but use those failures and use those mishaps as a way to become stronger. We learn more in failure than we do in success, and there will be a lot of times that you want to give up. Use that passion, use that energy, use that willpower that you use to get back up on your feet as a motivation to not only do better than you did the day before, but to aspire to be at the top of your sport, whatever sport that may be. It is of high importance that young professional sportsmen continue with academics and sport for as long as their profession or their professional careers allow. If we end up on the academia side of things, then it's always handy to have sport as a backup and a release, and it makes you a more well-rounded person. Vice versa, if you end up being a professional sportsman and making a career out of sport, then the academia side of things help you to better understand contracts and be more intellectual when it comes to interviews and speaking in team meetings, which is of very high importance when the team dynamic is introduced.
His mother Joycelyn is with us, as well as his sister Chantel. And we now would like to invite them on stage to receive a special award from the University of the West Indies. Now to a video featuring Jason Holder.
My involvement in the CCC program helped me in such a way that it gave me an opportunity to play professional cricket as well as pursue my studies. UWI through CCC prepared me for the big stage by giving me an opportunity to have good facilities to prepare myself and also having good coaches around to supervise me in anything I needed. My only advice to young sports persons who are looking to become professional athletes would be to manage your time wisely. It is important to make certain sacrifices, as these sacrifices will allow you to focus in on your specific field.
Make no mistake, that young man is destined for greatness. Jason Holder could not be with us this evening. His father, Ronald Holder, will receive the award. It's time for the inaugural UWI Vice Chancellor's Sportswoman and Sportsman of the Year. Fallon Ford, Athletics. Fallon has represented Barbados in the IAAF World Relays, the Central America and Caribbean Games, and the World University Games. He has become a force to be reckoned with in the 200-meter event and has been able to improve his best time from 21.35 seconds to an astonishing 20.89. The second nominee from the Cavell campus is Chadwick Walton. Chadwick is captain of the UWI Blackbirds cricket team. In 2015, he led the team to all 3 titles available in the Barbados Cricket Association's elite division. Chadwick has played, of course, for the West Indies A team and the West Indies senior team. He also plays for the Jamaican Talawas. The nominees from the Mona campus. Cricket, Rovman Powell, a hard-working all-round cricketer. He's a member of the UWI Intercollegiate team, competed in the Jamaica Cricket Association's 50-over tournament, where he captured the most wickets, 20 wickets in 6 games. Rovman is also a member of the Jamaica Scorpions and the Jamaica Talawas. The second nominee from Jamaica is Catherine Winter for the sport of badminton. Catherine represented her country in her first international tournament at the age of 13. She continued to participate in international matches during her time at secondary school and at UWI. Most recently, she competed in the Jamaica International Badminton Tournament, where she won a gold and a bronze medal. From the Open campus, Narissa Augustine, netball. Narissa first joined the national team in St. Lucia when she was 15 years old. She has been selected as a member of the national senior team for the last 8 years and was twice appointed as vice captain of the St. Lucia national team. Abigail Fede. Abigail's determination earned her a place on the St. Lucia national under-16 netball team in 2009. She was promoted to vice captaincy in 2010. She's set to resume training with the under-23s after the academic year 2016-2017. And the nominees from the St. Augustine campus of the University of the West Indies, Edson Breedy. The past year has been one packed with many remarkable accomplishments for Edson. He won gold at the World Taekwondo Open and became the first Trinbagonian to win a medal at this tournament. Edson was also named as the best male athlete at the first Trinidad and Tobago Taekwondo Open, which was held in 2015. His success at this tournament included a gold medal. He recently jumped 200 places up in the world rankings for his sport. And the final nominee for Sports Personality of the Year, Avoni Seymour, currently the captain of the UWI St. Augustine female volleyball team. She is considered one of the best players on the team. Her outstanding performance on the court was recognized in 2015 when she was named MVP on the team. Avoni has also served as the captain of the Bahamas Junior National Volleyball team. And it is my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to announce that the University of the Year Sportswoman of 2016 and the first ever is Catherine Winter. Mrs. Amanda Reefer, head of the Academy of Sport at the University of the West Indies, will receive the award for our first ever sportswoman of the year, Catherine Winter.
Hi, my name is Catherine Winter. I'm a final year student in the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of the West Indies, Mona. I'm a scholarship athlete and a national representative in badminton. Follow me to see why badminton is the best sport.
So what does it mean for you to be a UWI Pelican?
It means a lot to be a UWI Pelican. It fills you with a sense of pride, just being able to represent your university in such a lovely sport, the sport that you enjoy doing the most. So it really does make you feel happy, and it makes you feel accomplished to be able to represent your university in this way.
How has UWI supported you in your endeavors nationally and internationally while being a student here?
UWI has provided me with a scholarship to attend the university, which at first I really didn't think I was going to get because, you know, badminton is not such a prominent sport. And I'm the first person to receive a badminton scholarship to the University of the West Indies, Mona. So it really does make you feel accomplished, and it makes you feel like you are really excelling in your sport. Aside from just giving me a scholarship, they also work with your schedule when you have international tournaments. So if you have exams and you have a tournament at the same time, they work around it for you to be able to come back and do your exams at a later date. So I like that they are able to work with us as international athletes.
You've been here for 3 years. What's your most memorable moment being at UWI?
I would have to say my most memorable moment is winning the Premier Award, Athlete of the Year Award. I won that this year and last year. So it really does feel good being able to beat out track and field athletes, football athletes, netball athletes in those sports that are so popular in Jamaica. It really does make you feel good to win such an award. So that would have to be my most memorable moment.
So you've done badminton at the local, regional and international level. What's the biggest goal? Like, what do you hope to achieve? Like, what's your ultimate goal to achieve in badminton?
Ultimately, I want to go to the 2020 Olympics. I'd love to be able to represent my country in badminton. We've only had one woman who's done it so far. Her name is Nigella Saunders. And I want to be the next big thing. I want to be the next one to go and represent.
It looks like it's about to rain, so we probably should head back. But before we go, let's take a selfie.
Sure.
So we spoke a little bit about non-traditional sports, but how do you feel about females in sports in the Caribbean?
Well, I feel that we've come a far way. Females have been getting a bit more recognition, and we're now being able to play sports that have once been considered masculine or male sports. But I still think we have a little way to go, because even little things like prize money, where males will win more prize money than females for playing the same sport. Little things like that I really feel should be changed. So we still have a far way to go, but we've improved.
Okay, so what's your advice to youngsters coming up in the sport?
Well, I would say follow your goals, follow your dreams. If it's your passion and it's what you love, just go for it. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. Just believe in yourself and believe in what you can do, and just go for your dreams.
I thought I worked this one out. I'm sure you did as well. Let's congratulate, ladies and gentlemen, our inaugural Sportsman of the Year, Chadwick Walton.
To represent the UWI Blackbirds, it is quite an honorary feeling, I must say. It's a very proud moment to walk out on that field with that UWI Blackbirds crest on your chest. I mean, going through history twice, I mean, it's very good to even make history the first time, but to do it twice, and to do it twice with the UWI Blackbirds is very great, and I hope I can do it again this year. I mean, we have our eyes on the prize, and I think we'll come back again with a treble again this year. In leadership and sport, there's not a right or wrong way to lead anybody in sports or in life. I mean, you have to first understand the persons that you're leading. You need to also understand yourself as an individual, and you must know how to motivate persons. And once you have trust and faith in them and you motivate them, then you will get the results that you're looking for. To play international cricket, to do a masters, and to captain a side, it's a very difficult task. With proper man management and time management, I think it can be done because I've done it, so it can be done. But it's a very difficult task, and once you put your mind to something, you can achieve. In the university, I must have made a transformation from early days university to current days university now. I mean, they have been more accommodating to student athletes, and I think it is the right way for any university to go in this modern era. It's good to see that the University of the West Indies have taken up the mantle in this region as the pioneer university to facilitate persons playing international sports and actually doing this school run. CCC is very dear to me. Personally, I think that the CCC has a critical role to play in West Indies cricket. There are a lot of persons who have made a debut at CCC and have made it to the international scene. Currently, some of the persons who have come through the CCC program and have been on the international scene is Carlos Brathwaite, who hit the 4 sixes in the last over to ensure that we had the T20 World Cup this year. We have Shamar Holder, who made his debut via CCC and currently went on to represent the West Indies under 19 and have given us a title also. We have Jason Holder, who is the captain of the current West Indies senior team. And there are persons who have been in and out. You have myself, you have Miles Bascom, and the list goes on and on and on. One of my most memorable moments was in CPL sharing a partnership with Kumar Sangakkara. I mean, that was a semi-final against the Tridents, where the Tala was, obviously we won. And international cricket-wise was sitting on the bench watching the great man in his last innings, Sachin Tendulkar in India. I mean, my advice to young men and women who are aspiring to a career in sport, don't just aspire for a career in sport. They should also take the opportunity that the university have created to get an education for themselves, because, I mean, the way sports is going in the world is not just about talent. It's about that brain power, that cunningness, that quickness that one has to think on their feet. And the university, I mean, rightfully so, have realized that sports is an integral part of the region and have been very accommodating to students who have been part of sporting disciplines across the region. So I think they have been giving out a lot of scholarships, which is the right way to go. And if they can get the support from the various governments and the various corporate societies, that would be very good for young athletes aspiring to come to the university. And just to get a degree, that's after the sporting career, they can also make a meaningful contribution to society.
A primary objective of UWI TV is to present critical analyses of the common issues, concerns, and socio-economic priorities in our region, sharing more perspectives than normally meet the eye. You will seek to dig deeper, think broader, and reach higher in our understanding and representations of our Caribbean civilization and of our world. We will look to the past and fully explore the matters of the present with a view to shaping our collective future. When we began developing the idea of UWI TV, we wanted our region to enjoy the educational value of television, absorb ideas, and appreciate their worth. Yet, there was one more reason for entering the world of television and multimedia. That was to encourage us all to think of our television as being representative of who we are and what we want to be as one Caribbean region. For us to do that, we have to understand what television was meant to be, what it has become, and where we, the Caribbean people, need to take it into the future. Television's trajectory of development in the Caribbean has been said to represent, in more ways than the literal, the socio-political, the cultural, economic, and ideological changes that have occurred in our Caribbean in recent decades. Our Caribbean nation builders have been credited with visionary use of public service broadcasting for identity creation and for strengthening our independence. Then, television was always intended as a tool for national empowerment and regional development. Significant investments were made in the implementation of television infrastructure within the region. As globalization emerged in the 1980s and 1990s, the region's yearning for brisk economic growth led policymakers to embrace cultural and creative industries and to value their critical role in regional development. Emerging technologies fueled that fire as satellite, cable, and eventually internet carry stories, news, and on evolving diets of program into our homes and our collective psyches. We are now in a new phase of television. Technology has enabled us to view programming on a variety of platforms. It has compelled us to create a programming more quickly and more efficiently. We at UWI have decided to use the opportunity that these new technologies offer to share ideas, to dig deeper, think broader, reach higher for our understanding of our region and our world, to forge ahead with a pantheon of ideas. For us at UWI, the medium is the message. Ours is a message of inclusion and empowerment, a message of sharing, a message of growth, development, and economic independence for our Caribbean nations and our peoples. We at the University of the West Indies are proud to bring that message to our region and our world through the UWI TV service that we are launching today. We hope that you will enjoy our programs, and we invite you to engage with us on the web and on social media. We welcome your feedback, your suggestions, and recommendations as we seek to improve this service in the future. Thank you.